Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I see we have plenty of attendees slowly starting to filter in, so we'll give just another moment or two so that everybody can join us. But thank you all so much for being here today. I'm Audrey Imes from the Women in Manufacturing Association. And just to cover a couple housekeeping items, we are going to have a Q&A portion at the end of our event today where we'll be able to post some questions from our audience to our panelists. Throughout today's event, if you have a question that you want to pose to our panelists during the Q&A, you can actually enter it in the Q&A window, which you'll see in the Zoom menu across the bottom of your screen. And it looks like we are just about ready to get started. So I will go ahead and hand things over to Kathy.
All right. Well, welcome to an episode of Business as Unusual. We are going to be talking about empowering women with a growth mindset today, and we're really excited to take our show on the road, so to speak, and join forces with WIM to bring this really compelling topic to the forefront. I'm so pleased to introduce our panelists today. We've got a real group of badass women. So first off, Loretta Boutot, who is CFO for Scott Forge Company, and they're a 100% employee-owned ESOP organization that manufactures custom open die and rolled ring forges. She's worked in manufacturing sectors such as consumer products, injection molding, assembly, semiconductor, cell phones, satellites, along with small molecule drugs and human manufactured plasma treatments for notable organizations like Motorola, Aptar Group, and Shire Takeda. Wow. What hasn't she seen made? That's really incredible. A fun fact about Loretta is she's taken several improv classes, and she's going to talk about how that's really been a factor in her growth journey. Then we have Latoya Connors-Gray, who is the North American Director of Pricing Technology and Operations at Grainger. And in this role, she's responsible for pricing systems, pricing operations, and compliance for Grainger North America, which includes the US and Canada. Prior to Grainger, she's worked for a large retail organization and had a successful career in management consulting. So outside of her day job, she is pretty busy. So she serves on a board of a national media organization. She's a mentor to young professionals and a highly engaging speaker on topics which include diversity and inclusion, faith and leadership, and you'll feel her energy when she gets her chance to tell her story. And then Mary Ellen Grom is the Executive Director and Customer Experience Solutions for AFL, where she leads AFL's marketing, customer service, and inside sales team. She joined AFL in 2017 after 25 years in the IT channel distribution industry, where she most recently was the the Vice President US Marketing at Synapse Corporation. Mary Ellen has been an active diabetes advocate in honor of her son who has type 1 diabetes. And today she participates on the Women in Manufacturing's Education Foundation board and is a Wise Her marketing advisor for the online leadership networking community. And then I'm Kathy Steele, I'm your moderator today, and we're really excited to be a new corporate member of WIM. I am CEO and founder of Red Caffeine, and we're a growth consultancy, and our mission is to build badass brands that clients want to work for and employees want to clients want to work with and employees want to work for. And so I'm gonna just kind of tee up where we're going to be heading today. So we're going to showcase today how it's possible to focus on business growth and your personal development. We really believe that you can make bold moves in your organization to secure its future while leveraging an opportunity to enhance your skills and your own portfolio. And so these are the 9 different growth lanes an organization can take to scale up. And a lot of these are pretty self-explanatory and probably familiar to all of our attendees, but I'm going to provide a little context for a couple of them. The first one is technology. Obviously, almost every organization has accelerated their technology footprint just based on the pandemic. But really, when we think about technology as a growth thing, it's advancing your organization through digital transformation. And it really requires evaluating your whole tech stack across your business. And then building a technology transformation roadmap. So we call it simply automating, integrating, and innovating. Learnings include leading an implementation, maybe an ideation, coming up with a new technology that disrupts your industry, or training. As simple as training can be a learning opportunity. The other one I want to call attention to is human capital, because many organizations neglect this growth lane or don't think about it as a key factor in growth. But we always sort of love that adage, what got you here won't get you there. And organizations really do need to align their human capital resource strategies with their business goals. So studies show that people and practices of organizations can really drive your own competitive advantage. So learnings in the human capital growth lane include building a team from scratch and working with varieties of people. And so we're going to try and tie that together with some information from the Center for Creative Leadership. And the Center for Creative Leadership does studies on executive growth and development, and they've really confirmed that experiences are the best teacher. But they found that you can get the experience, but you don't always get the necessary growth learning. So it's not automatic. So that is why I think it's important to really be intentional in thinking about the growth lanes and how the different experiences within growth lanes apply to your career advancement. And so again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but on the left-hand side, I do want to call out some of the best experiences and talk a little bit about hardships. So these experiences don't always happen on the job. So even a hardship that is a part of your personal life can help you develop key characteristics for leadership, like resilience. And then also notably, that you need at least 5 of the different characteristics on the left-hand side. That's almost half this list to really have a leveling up experience. And so some of the things that you might, that I want to call out here are the being watched by people in your organization. It's not as difficult when you're in a smaller organization to get noticed, but when you work in a really large organization, how do you catch the eye of leaders that are significantly at a different level than you are? So thinking about that in how you're looking at your career advancement. And then the last thing I'll mention on career development is something important is missing. So that we can think about in, say you were going to launch into a new marketplace, say, you're looking to break into the aerospace market, but you've never had any work in aerospace. So you may need to pull in somebody to do some research on how to get into that market, or do the research yourself. This also can be something that you've never done before. So maybe you're working on a digital transformation or a new technology implementation, and it's never existed in your organization. So thinking about filling a gap as a learning opportunity. And so now we're going to get a chance to hear from our panelists and have them talk about how they've been able to participate in different business growth opportunities and some of the things that they've experienced in their career. And we're going to start with Latoya, and she's going to really answer for us, how did she get the opportunity? What were some of the things that she experienced in her career journey? And then what were some of the outcomes that the company experienced? How did she impact the company? Take it away, Latoya.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you for everyone that's joining us here today for the discussion. A big special thank you to Kathy Still and Janet Vian for inviting me. And thank you to my fellow panelists. I know I'm looking forward to a robust conversation and learning from each of you. So the central question of this panel is, can you drive your company's growth and your career as well? And the answer for me personally is a resounding yes. As a matter of fact, there's a clear synergy between the benefit of excelling and growing your company's goals. Driving your company's growth and helping your organization achieve its goals only helps you and your career in the long run. However, both are born out of being intentional. So 2020 has changed the way we live. It's changed the way we work and, more importantly, the way we lead. In my own experience, the one thing that 2020 did for us personally and professionally was to challenge our priorities. I don't know about you, but some of my largest and most complex conversations in my day-to-day are on the topic of prioritization. My day, like yours, is filled with how to do more with less, how to prioritize programs, technology, and resources based on the biggest benefit to the value of the organization. So Padma Lakshmi, in an interview with CNN, said, "You don't have to say yes to every single thing." This is something that I'm still learning, but 2020 and 2021 has taught me that I don't have to say yes to everything. While leading our teams, we have been intentional about being selective to what we say yes to and where we focus our energy. And I don't know about you, but the concept of going back to normal is not as attractive to me as when it comes to prioritizing. I believe right now that in this environment, my teams and I are working more effectively and more intentionally than ever before. And I want to continue to be selective and to prioritize accordingly. So during the last 10 years of my career, I've had the good fortune to experience a number of teachings and expertise that have come from the Center for Creative Leadership, which Kathy referenced. These experiences came from being a part of leadership and top talent communities in my organizations. The items that ring true is that the deepest and most valuable part of a leader's development journey is usually born from a type of or event or a hardship that drives that person, in this case, drove me to dig deep and to plow forward. The Center for Creative Leadership also calls out traits that impact your career. And some people would run from some of these traits, but unfortunately, I'm not that type of person. I've actually learned quite a bit. So, I've been able to lead projects where success and failure were both possible in that project. The ability to influence other people, interacting with good and bad bosses. There's still something to be learned from interacting with a bad boss. Having a program or a project or opportunity to participate in a variety of different items, and then finally deciding that you're going to take charge. I know that those 5 items have been true for my own career. So let's pivot for a moment. When COVID hit, we all had to work in the midst of hardships. Figuring things out and getting things done was no different. My fellow panelists, we are known for getting things done. So 2020 and now 21 has not only allowed me to build my brand, but to expand my brand. The needs that existed within my own organization allowed me to personally step up to the challenge and take on more responsibility. So instead of shrinking back, I stepped out. I'm also very grateful that I'm able to say that I was able to serve my organization in a very unique capacity. One of those ways was to serve as an appointee to the Business Research Group, specifically the Vice President of the African American Business Research Group. As a leader with the shift in priorities, I've been able to pave the way, not just for myself, but for other high-performing team members, and have been able to invest more time in developing others via mentoring and coaching. People that were on my team or part of other partner organizations. So with that being said, at this point in my career, there's 3 growth lanes that I have the most experience with. They're highlighted on the screen: human capital, technology, and strategic partnerships. Common to all 3 growth lanes are 3 principles or thoughts that I'd like to leave you with to consider. The first is that the complexity that exists in our organizations is usually beyond and deeper than what meets the eye. This really encompasses the crux of success and failure. Point number 2 is if it's worth fixing, it's worth continuing the journey to make it better, which of course encompasses things like continuous improvement and the fact that you have to keep chipping away at an issue. I'm going to share an example of this with you later. And the third point is being able to build teams that work together to drive strategy. So, interesting concept about strategy. Years ago, when I was first in consulting out of grad school at Carnegie Mellon, strategy was this mystical and powerful phrase that people used to command the floor in the boardrooms, seats at the table, and higher salaries. But the reality that I've learned is that you can have the best strategic plan, but if you can't operationalize it and get adoption from people in your organization, you're dead in the water. So as we pivot again and talk about growth lanes, I want to focus on human capital for a moment. So your people, our people, is our organization's biggest asset. Everyone knows this conceptually, and everyone plans for the best, supposedly, but what happens when it goes wrong? I've been a part of organizations that have gotten a human capital component right and others that simply did not. But the difference was not so much the organization overall, but the specific manager or people that drove the culture in the organization. It's definitely true that people work for people and not for companies. In 2020, we learned to communicate with people differently. During one-on-ones, we took the time to ask people how they're doing. When crisis and family tragedies hit, we gave people space to deal with trauma, and we opened up and allowed people to openly discuss their concerns and fears. We addressed hard topics of diversity and inclusion, and we made way for voices that might not have had spoken up in the past. By doing this, you as leaders, aspiring leaders, build in and invested in human capital. The investment you made will have a significant return. The next growth lane is technology. And I was reading an article from Inc. And the author noted that as effective leaders, we have to be able to develop a simple plan for complex strategy. One of my successes has always been being able to break down complexities to get momentum within the organization. Strategy is complex, but if it's so complex that it can't be understood, then maybe your strategy is just too complex, and it's probably too complex to execute and operationalize. Key technology decisions are no longer just about the technical stack, the consulting company assisting you with an implementation, or your organization's website. It's about the consumer and the customer experience and a journey. It's about the tools and capabilities, not just for today, but for years into the future. It's about being able to pivot and shift in the middle of a big project to accommodate a new need. And it's not just about moving faster and beating the competition. It's about beating the competition at what the competition is known for. So McKinsey and Company published an article on the buying habits of consumers and organizations. And what we've seen in the midst of this pandemic is B2B and B2C, the world has changed rapidly. Consumers and organizations have developed and changed the omni-channel landscape, not just for 2020 and 2021, but also for the future. The companies that have succeeded most have a true technology roadmap that facilitated the shift. They were thinking ahead. They were making decisions and priorities ahead of their time. They were able to be agile and to adjust. I know I personally am motivated and stoked to know that my company had all the right tools in place that allowed us to succeed in the 2020 environment with our internal teams and with our customers. I never missed a beat with my team members in the US or my team members outside of the US. If anything, the technology success that we had allowed us to truly connect and operate in a manner that was unique to the environment and, dare I say, better for the organization. The final growth lane that I'm going to speak on today is effective partnerships. In my career, I've never seen a decision made in isolation succeed. Let me repeat that. I've never seen a decision made in isolation succeed. As the world becomes more competitive and greater demands are put on talent and speed to market, it's essential that in large and small organizations alike, that there's alignment and true partnering that drives collaboration and better outcome. So back to that example I was going to tell you about. When I was first hired into Grainger, I was working on a number of highly visible cross-functional projects. You know, the type where there's like 30 or 40 people in a meeting. One of the stakeholders in particular who knew the company in and out, he knew where all the skeletons was hidden, and he knew every gotcha. He literally stopped my project multiple times. He single-handedly derailed us. But back to my point about chipping away when it doesn't seem like you're going to get something completed. Driving continuous improvement, having small wins, took a long time, but a much bigger benefit to the organization. The particular stakeholder that I'm speaking about, we now joke. The reality of it is he actually put a stop to my project as a leader at different points in times, but we now have better outcomes because through the partnerships and through the hardships and through the frustration, we were able to work through the complexities and the plans we delivered were better than the original plans. So over the last 12 months, I've intentionally connected with partners and peers to greater understand their challenges. And I personally have reaped the benefits of what it means to live in an environment where people prioritize not only the work, but each other. I can truly say that these type of partnerships transforms organizations from the inside out. So Yvonne Sawyer said the pandemic has taught her a number of things, but most importantly, it taught her that we should clearly articulate what we're trying to achieve. And last, we should create a platform that allows others to work alongside of us and allows others to work with us. So I would like to leave you with a closing thought as it relates to your future forecast. Author Terry McMillan said the following: but more than anything, I made myself believe that I will come out on the other side of this stronger for trusting that there's always something positive waiting for us. She was referencing everything that had happened in the pandemic. So I'll leave you with this. When you drive the goals of your organization, when you drive your career growth, there's always something positive for you. Your company's value goes up, you obtain knowledge, connections, and increase, whatever increase looks like for you. It may not always be linear and it may not always be vertical, but it will always be in your best interest. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Latoya. Is there anything that you could tell us, like a little more detail about some of the success and failures that you saw, like in tandem? I love the dichotomy of those two concepts.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the reality of it is when you're working on really large scale projects within an organization that's highly cross-functional, and when you bring an organization that has different business units, the selling organization, whether it's HR, IT, et cetera, all into one place, there's always an opportunity that you're going to fail. As a leader, it's almost impossible to have your eyes and ears to the ground on different things. That's why you have high performing team members. But the reality of it is that I think failure is as big as a part of the journey as success, and that you learn a lot through those failing points. But it's always how you respond to that failure. In my own career, I've had some really large wins, but I've also had some very big failures. But I was always able to recover because of my ability to network, because of the way I build partnerships. And at some point in time in your career, you have to be willing to say, I made a mistake. I approached this the wrong way. Are you willing to partner with me to do it again?
Yeah, fantastic. We have a value, own it good or bad. And I really believe that you have to be able to, both champion your successes and admit your failures. So thank you so much. All right, we're gonna switch gears and have Loretta take us through her career.
Wonderful. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Latoya, for starting us off in such a fabulous way. I'd just like to say, that being here with the women in manufacturing is unbelievable. I've been in manufacturing for almost 3 decades now. I'm currently on site at a manufacturing facility that occasionally makes loud noises, so hopefully we won't have any of those in the background. But like I said, I'm very excited. And when I think about the topic of this webinar and how to align your personal growth to your company growth, from my experience, there are 2 attributes that are needed. And these 2 can seem mutually exclusive, but I do believe they are relevant for what Kathy was talking about, the experiences that are truly developmental for your growth and for your career growth. And what I see those 2 elements being is a risk and patience. So I'm going to highlight how those 2 aspects played out for me in an experience as it relates to a new product arena, an acquisition that I was involved in. So this particular opportunity was presented to me in my late 30s by my manager. So our company had just bought a handheld barcode scanning device company in New York, and he wanted to know if I would be on the integration team. So I took a risk and I said yes. And it was the start of a 6-month time and travel intensive journey that ended in me leading the financial integration with one of my counterparts in the business that we had just acquired. And when I look back at what this particular experience what about it made it meaningful and developmental from a growth perspective, I'm going to try and compare it to that list of those 11 items where you need some of those to really make it a developmental experience. So the first one is that it requires take charge leadership. And this opportunity, again, was sold to me as being part of a team, but I quickly saw that it was really just me and the finance team at the business we had acquired to get this job done. And of course, the issue was that the business that we acquired, they didn't really know our side of the systems and the financials. So they really looked at me to manage this project as a knowledge resource. Another element that was on the list is that you work with a lot of people and new people. And of course, the entire team at the company we acquired was new to me. And it really required a lot of listening, relationship building, and a lot of my time, getting to know them, building the team, building the trust. And that's what was needed to accomplish the integration. So that's kind of on the patience side, taking that time, building in that effort. Needless to say, it also took a lot of influencing of the team there, influencing them to believe that the integration would not fundamentally change the way that they operate on a day-to-day basis. And that it surely was not easy. There were many strong opinions, as you can imagine, and conversations. And that's, again, where the patience comes in. Taking the time, being available, work through issues, listen in order to accomplish a desirable outcome. Another one of the elements, as I reflected back, is around does the experience create personal pressure? And I can tell you this particular project for sure created some personal pressure on me. I was getting my MBA from Kellogg at night during this time in my career. I had just had my third son while I was in the MBA program, and I made the decision that this project was important enough to take a semester off because I knew I would have to travel a lot. In fact, I became a regular at the Residence Inn across the street from the plant, and I knew that on Tuesdays they had really good mostaccioli for the dinner that they gave us. So I made sure that I was always there for that. But, you know, those are some of the decisions that you have to make along the way as well. And then one of the last elements that the experience really had was it was watched by people whose opinion counts. This was a huge investment that the company that I was at made to acquire this company, this new product, new market. And even though the integration of the financials might seem not so significant of an area, this was one of the ways that the upper level management at our company could get a better handle on the performance of this new business as quickly as possible. So our progress on this project was reported to the CFO of our company each month and was really viewed as one of the high priority finance projects. So in reflecting back, it really did have those elements that Kathy talked about that solidify something into a meaningful growth developmental experience. So in the beginning, I mentioned that growth requires taking a risk as well as having patience. I think you can probably identify the risks that I had to take for the opportunity: time away from home, pausing my MBA, high visibility project, creating stress. But what about the patience portion, right? So where does that come in? So in the end, the project was completed successfully, on time. I was recognized by the company with a recognition award for the successful completion. However, what it didn't come with was a promotion, a raise, any kind of compensation for the lost time, that wasn't immediately following. So as I reflect back, I think that's where the patience portion of it, of growth comes in, right? To grow anything, to grow takes time, takes patience, takes attention, hard work. What the experience did give to me was a lot of confidence in what can be accomplished and the role that I can play in influencing that outcome. And I do feel that it did help me in my next role, and my next role, and my next role. So, that's kind of the reflection of that experience. You might wonder how the acquisition helped the growth of the company for the product and for both companies. And as I reflect back again, I would say it was a successful integration. Successful in that the business is still an ongoing, a viable operation. Their products are thriving. But on the other side, as with most acquisitions, the expected synergies were not as achieved as quickly as we would have liked. But it does seem, and again, it seems that there was a happy ending. This happened after I left the company several years ago. I read about it in the papers where the same company that we purchased was sold to another large barcode scanning company where it seems that it's a better fit from a product standpoint. So that's just another example of risk and patience, right, from a company perspective. There's always a risk on both sides when companies are acquired. And usually it takes time and the right conditions for that growth to see the fruition of the outcomes. So I'm hoping that this example was helpful in the context of what we're talking about in terms of these growth lanes, as well as how it relates to challenging jobs. And if you'll just allow me to tell you one more experience, which Kathy alluded to, as it relates to off-the-job experiences. This was back in 2018. I was going through a job change, move, changes in my personal life, and I really wanted to try something that I had always wanted to do. And one of my friends who I had met on a group hiking trip, she encouraged me to take this improv comedy class. And it wasn't just a one and done. It was an 8-week class every Monday for about 3 hours. So I took a big risk because, believe it or not, I'm a card-carrying introvert, and I did it. And I loved it. I loved the class and even signed up for a second level and a third level one, almost to the point where I did my own improv show, but not quite. So just another example of sometimes you have to just jump in. The class over the long term gave me even more confidence in my presentations, my presentation skills, and also, and again, this is only my opinion, it made me a heck of a lot funnier. But, I am a CPA and an accountant after all, so, you gotta work with what God gave you. So it also didn't happen overnight, right? It took a lot of patience, a lot of hard work, showing up to the classes every week, even when I didn't feel too funny. So, but I always felt better afterwards. So again, thank you very much. Thank you for letting me share my story, and hope that it helps highlight how your experiences, you can align your experiences, your personal growth objectives with your company's growth in order to achieve a meaningful developmental experience. And I really encourage each of you to take a risk, to think about the risks that you're taking, but at the same time, try to have some patience on the backside to see it through to fruition. So thank you very much. That's my story.
Thank you so much. That was incredible. I love it. And I also, felt like, there was a time I really thought that improv was only to be funny on stage, but it really is a skill building, kind of teaches you to be an ensemble or part of a team. So a lot of sort of baton handoffs in communication. I think it really is a great skill building tool for a lot of different scenarios in leadership. So we are going to have Mary Ellen Grom take us through her journey.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Latoya and Loretta, and to all the badass attendees out here, right? We have a lot of digital demands on our time these days, and you have made the decision to spend your time with us. So thank you. Thank you for listening and for your questions at the end. So a two-part scenario for me, I'm going to start by talking about the power of building and living out and aligning your own personal core values and how this relates to the 3 growth lanes on screen here. And then the second piece is all about the pivot. I did hear Latoya talk about pivot and the power of pivoting and what it means in a career and how that impacted my life. But starting out with those core values, I think it's really important to dig deep within yourself early in your education and your career development to figure out what are your personal values. Because if you need to work for a company, whether it be your first job or your 20th job, you've got to align to the company's values at some point in time. And if you haven't identified your own, sometimes it can put you in a predicament. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm a Catholic grade school girl. I spent my time in high school focused on journalism and media classes. When I got into college at the Ohio State University, and that's almost a scarlet background. I'm liking it right there. That's not intentional, I'm sure, but I love it. I feel right at home in Buckeye Nation. But I did decide to do an internship with the Walt Disney World College Program, which is a fantastic 15-week experience that really, really identified who I am and who I've become over time. At a very young age, I was told that I was adopted. My parents were very transparent about that and authentic. And I immediately started to realize that, wow, I was chosen, right? You know, I have 2 teenage kids. Believe me, there are days where I go, I don't think I chose that, right? I would have never chosen that. But regardless of your situation, when I did realize I was chosen, it gave me this sense of confidence. And it's something that I've reflected on a lot throughout my life and career, and it's really a part of who I am. So when you start thinking about your values, my first one is customers first. Whether your customer is your husband, your significant other, your children, Wall Street, it could be customers who buy from you or prospects, right? Whoever your customer is, think backwards from them to make your decisions. It's a powerful way of getting things done. The power of first impressions. I'm also a Navy brat. My dad spent 27 years in the Navy, and he taught me a lot of things, but most impactful in business has been the power of a firm handshake and looking people in the eye all the time. Don't let your guard down on that. You have to build lifelong relationships. My personal mantra is connect the people. The dots will follow. Start with the people because you're going to get the work done. You're going to solve the problem. You're going to tackle the challenge. But it's all about making relationships that last a lifetime. And then also the power of handwritten thank you notes. Right? It's a lost art in today's world, especially now that we're so virtually connected to everything. Don't forget to show appreciation and gratitude. Always be learning. We've heard about that today, how important education and learning is. I'm a lifelong learner. It will help you. It will help you to not get comfortable in your roles. It's really, really important. And I'll talk about that because I'm living proof of not getting comfortable. Have a plan, whether you want to marry your high school sweetheart, build out your family, buy a second home, pay off your mortgages, build your faith, or give back through the power of paying it forward in your community with others. If those are your plans, those were mine, by the way, and I've brought those to fruition. When you write them down and you have an opportunity to make that happen, you'll see that success along the way. Have one-word resolutions. You know, there's a lot of thought out there about everybody creating complex New Year's resolutions, the one word focus for me has really worked. Things like endurance, cherish, harmony. And this is my year of curiosity. I'm in a new role, 4 months into a new role, same company, but new role. And if I don't ask enough questions and take risks and challenge myself, it's hard to see how I'm going to get through what's in front of me. You know, my best decision ever, I think, was made with my husband when we made the decision. Sorry, Audrey, nothing against Ohio. I did grow up in Ohio and Cleveland rocks, but, you know, we didn't like that weather. We needed a change. So we closed our eyes and dropped our finger on Greer, South Carolina. We didn't know anybody. We didn't have jobs, but we were young. We didn't know any better. And we figured if we didn't do it then, we might not never do it. So take those chances on yourself. Sometimes the payoff is absolutely astronomical. All of these decisions and these core values that I built for myself led me to several corporate marketing roles in different technology companies. Technology is one of the lanes here, and technology not from the sense of, yes, I use technology, we have to use technology to be successful, but my entire career has been built in the technology industry. So have I grown my career alongside my companies based on the lane of technology? Don't you know it? From barcode scanners like you, Loretta, I heard about your acquisitions there, from PCs and peripherals, and now to telecommunications. You know, I thought in marketing, I'd be out there on Madison Avenue squawking about Budweiser beers and Nike shoes, right? But no, those are not the brands. Technology got me where I am. So part two, it's all about the pivot. And everybody pivots at different places, at different points, and for different reasons. My biggest pivot in my career came in the fall of 2016 when I was 48 years old. I never thought I'd make a huge career pivot at that point in my life. But it was unexpected health issues from my dad when we found out in late September that he was not doing well. And a short month later, he's diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer. That was October, end of October. And on December 10th, I lost my dad. How does that happen that fast? It was stifling. And there's never, ever going to be enough time to do what you need with your parents, with your family, with your friends. It's an experience unlike any other, losing a parent. I went through multiple stages of loss and grief and confusion, appreciation for what my dad taught me, my brother and my mom, and all the people that he impacted. I had a new admiration for my mom because look what she was going to have to go through. It's a fierce time of change, but it's also time for reflection. And that reflection and my dad's parting words gave me the opportunity to realize hardships create opportunity to do better for ourselves and to do better for others. At the time in my career, I was working for a Fortune 200 public company, and I was learning that I was struggling. I was struggling with a bunch of different things. I was traveling a lot. I had 2 kids about to become teenagers, and I missed a lot, right? I realized the profit-driven marketing model at this company, while wildly successful, it was starting to weigh on me personally. And I understand the power of profitability in corporate America. Don't get me wrong. It's a pillar for success. However, was I doing marketing for the wrong reason? I'm a customers first person, not a profit first, because I'm a believer you don't get profit until you invest in your customers and your people. So I made the decision by December 18th, a week after I lost my dad. By 4th of July, which is my favorite holiday, I am going to find a new job. I've never done that. Fortunately, opportunities have landed in my lap, but I've never made the decision to leave a company on my own and go start something new. It's where I taught myself believe or leave. If you don't believe in yourself, your boss, or the company you work for, if just one of those three things is out of line, it's time to make a change. So when that recruiter called me in January, mid-January, when I went back to work, don't you know, I answered the phone and I listened, right? And once again, I was fortunate enough not to have to look very far. And 45 days into the opportunity and the exploration, I learned about the company that I'm sitting at today, which, by the way, has been the best 3.5 years of my career. Sometimes you have to move away from that comfort zone. And high distribution taught me so much. But at the end of the day, it was time to jump over to manufacturing, right? For 25 years, I marketed everyone else's brand, not the company I work for. I was going to have the opportunity to have ownership in one company's brand. And for a marketeer like myself, a business development person who thrives on the customer and could really do marketing for the customer, that spoke volumes. So here we are. That's the new markets growth lane, right? Because I left that comfort of 25 years in one industry and went somewhere where I didn't know anyone. I didn't know the products. I didn't know the people. Heck, I didn't even know the language. And believe me, telecom and AFL specifically has their own dictionary of how to get things done, like many of you do in your roles. So keep your eyes wide open. Be fueled for never-ending curiosity, because you never know where it's going to take you. Embrace change and work with brilliant people like all of us gathered here today. I think you'll be amazed where it would take you.
Thank you so much, Mary Ellen. That was so riveting. I definitely forgot to mention your doctorate when in your bio. I thought that was so amazing. But I myself at 48 took had a business divorce based on values. So it is always sort of shocking when you think you're going to go someplace in your career and it's maybe going to coast for a while, and then you are completely disrupted at a kind of later stage in life. But I would never trade the organization that I'm able to run today for what I left. So I do think, you know, looking at your values, and I wish I would have heard somebody like you talk about that maybe 20 years ago. That would have been helpful. So hopefully that inspires somebody else. Well, I want to make sure we are able to open this up to questions. We do have a downloadable that's going to come with the follow-up email from Wim, but it's just going to give you a deeper dive on some of the different growth lanes, and then how the practices sort of relate to those growth lanes and what you could expect to experience based on the growth lanes in this downloadable. But so Audrey, do we have any questions coming through?
We haven't had any questions come through just yet, but just so everybody knows, again, that Q&A function is in the bottom, across the bottom of your screen, and you'll see it's just labeled Q&A. All right, I've got a couple questions coming in now. So this one is specifically for Mary Ellen. What would your biggest do-over be?
My biggest do-over. Wow.
Just one?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if I had to do something over again, I would have made more decisions in my career for myself. And honestly, I believe I'm in the midst of my biggest do-over right now, because I did learn in those first 25 years, it taught me a lot about how to stand up, how to stand out, how to show up, how to show off the right way, right? There's a secret to showing off the right way, so it doesn't come off with the wrong perspective. But yeah, I really think right now I'm in the midst of my do-over with my career, and really embracing AFL, my team, the people that I work with every day, the industry, and really learning to understand that it's okay to make a change of that magnitude late in your career. And when I realized I was gonna make a decision to hire to retire, that was my goal. I don't want to do this again. As much as it's fun, I don't know that I want to do that again in 10 years. But yeah, good question.
Great question. This one's for the whole group to respond to if you have one. Have any of you ever not known what you wanted to do? Latoya?
So I think that's a great question. I'll just give a little example. So my background is actually in the sciences. So I was pretty insistent that I was going to go to medical school, and then life threw me a curveball where in the middle of my undergrad, I had a parent pass away and I needed to take care of another parent. But I had an advisor that was looking out for me, and that advisor said, "Hey, you're really good at this, this, and this. Why don't you try something new?" And I did. I ended up going to grad school and I pursued technology and finance. And it wasn't my strong point, but it was actually so amazing because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew what I was good at, and other people were talking and speaking into my life. And that's kind of been my journey in my career. Like, if I'll always start something new. Now almost everything I do starts with technology. It has a process bent to it. It has a complexity to it. But I've never subscribed to the notion that you always have to know your every next step. I believe that if you take the next step with good faith and you have good experience and surround yourselves with good people and good opportunities, that you'll eventually land where you need to be. And you'd have to be strategic and intentional, but I believe that you should also give yourself the ability to have grace and to try new things.
Awesome. Thanks, Latoya. This next question is addressed to Loretta. Loretta, you spoke about having patience with the growth of your career and allowing it to grow with time. But how do you know when to make the decision that the growth isn't going to happen at your current company and maybe you should move on to other opportunities?
So I'm going to answer it simply that you will know. If you listen to the signs and you feel that way in your heart, you will know that it's time to move on and to make kind of the pivot that Mary Ellen talked about. Like, if something doesn't feel right with yourself, with your company, with your boss, as she mentioned. People used to say this to me when I was younger, when I was dating, and I would meet someone, I'd think, is he the right one? And they'd say, you'll know. And I just got remarried 2-3 months ago. I'm losing count already. And I knew, and I finally knew at 51 years old what they were talking about. So, and I've seen that oftentimes where people will tell their story and they say, do you think that there's something wrong here in my career? And I'd say, let's just listen back to what you just told me. There absolutely is, right? So you will always know. So I would just say, take the time to pay attention to the cues, to understand yourself and what you're feeling, and do the right thing for yourself.
I would
and sorry, just one thing. The other thing that I tell people when they ask me advice is, I'd say, always do what is right for you. Don't worry about the company. Worry about yourself. Because in the end, I've seen it over and over again. If you make a decision that's right for you, it will be right for the company.
I was just going to add to that. I think this goes both ways. For organizations that are recognizing it's time for somebody to exit. It used to break my heart when people were going to leave, but I think now, wow, how incredible can you that you've given somebody a career opportunity, a building block for their career. And if they're ready to go, or you need to exit somebody that is not voluntary, it is for the best for both. For both sides. So I think, I really just changed my viewpoint on that thinking, because there is just, there's so much opportunity to level up as an individual by taking that next career step, but your company gets an opportunity to level up too by getting, new, fresh thinking, new blood. So I think we shouldn't view it as such a tragedy as I might have thought about it in the past.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Kathy. So I'm taking the questions just in the order that they've come. We've got some really great ones in here. This one's kind of addressed to everybody. How has emotional intelligence played a role in any of your journeys?
All right, I'll take this. Well, so a couple of years ago, we took the whole company through an apprenticeship program around emotional intelligence. And it was, for me, a way, being a smaller organization, a way to build some soft skills on my leadership team and all out throughout the company. And I think what I learned was that I personally had a lot of room to grow in terms of my emotional intelligence. I kind of came up through the command and control. And even though I wanted to build this incredible culture, I didn't possess some of the skills needed to really have an emotionally sensitive workplace culture. And so I think that really stunned me. I really thought I was doing something for my employees and not for myself, but I got so much out of that 10-month program, as did they.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. And then one question that I thought would just be a great one to kind of pose to everybody. Did you have mentors that helped foster your growth? And were those individuals from within your organization or outside of your organization?
I'll be glad to speak to that. I can't say that I've ever had a formal mentor myself. I have been a mentor to many, but I think my attitude is every single person I meet is a mentor to some degree. I love to connect with people. I learn something new from every person I meet, whether it happens right away in the relationship or at some phenomenal time down in the future that you least expected, right? And again, I think I approach every new person as someone that I can gain understanding, wisdom, answers, whatever that might be. So I look at it, everybody's a mentor.
Then Latoya, did you want to respond to this one as well?
Yeah, I just want to say a couple things. I have been very fortunate to have some really amazing mentors, coaches. And what's been interesting is the journey over time with them. So even when I've left the job, I've connected with people that were like a mentor or a former manager or something, and they've kind of followed my journey and they still speak into my life. So I think there's something about being vulnerable and having people be able to speak into your life no matter where you are, and being able to go to people for feedback, but just remembering that it's a very synergistic relationship, right? So it goes both ways, what you can do for them, what they can do for you, and just having that sounding board throughout the trajectory of your entire career. I've been very fortunate, so very important.
That's great. And Loretta, go right ahead.
Sorry, trying to figure out technology and unmute. And actually, I was going to ask, is it okay? I was scrolling through the questions. Is it okay if I just randomly pick one that I thought was? And now I've lost it. Sorry. Someone asked, how do you manage to make sure the mindset is curious instead of being insecure or incompetent? And I just would say, with the theme of this, I mean, we're badass women, and we should be able to ask questions. And if you feel that confidence in yourself, that's how it will come off. And if you really build that empathy and connection that we've been talking about, you will come off as being curious and wanting to get to know people and tying it into the mentorship. And then that can lead to other opportunities and mentors just by asking those questions. That's what I found, is because it helps them understand that you're interested in what they're doing or what they have to give to you.
Thank you so much, Loretta. And we can take one more question if we think we have time, Kathy.
Yeah, what I was going to mention is we are going to be able to circulate everybody's contact information. We do want you to reach out to each of us if you've got further questions directly. If you would put business as unusual or WIM event in the subject line, so we know, that it's coming from the webinar, we'll get back to you, because I'm sure as you guys think about the information, you're going to have some follow-on questions. Was there anything quick, Audrey, that we thought we could answer?
A lot of these seem like they might take us down a little more in depth. So maybe we give people the opportunity to reach out to our wonderful panelists on their own if they'd like.
That sounds great. And one last shameless plug for our next Business as Unusual event. We are actually going to have the woman that wrote the book on growth, Tiffany Bova. She is a chief evangelist at Salesforce, and she wrote the book Growth IQ. Now she says there's 10 growth lanes. Obviously, she's going to talk about the future of sales, one of the growth lanes, and this is an incredible book. We love it so much. We are going to give a free copy